Yo, Flow Riders, what it do, what it do. Check it out. Okay, you guys know the basic housekeepings around here. It's been a minute since I've been in the seat. I've been on the vacay, but I'm back. But you know what to do. If you have any questions related to this particular topic today, please drop them down in the comment section below. Mr. Paul will help you moderate in case y'all get out of hand. It will probably get a little nuts in the chat today because Jackie decided to show her ass up. You know what happens. Hi, Jackie. How you been, girl? Good to see you. Anyway, we got a good interview today with one of my friends. I can't wait to chat with him. For those of you guys, just remember, try to keep it podcast related in the chat. And, you know, at the end, if we got some space, you know, we'll throw a little Q&A at the backside. If you haven't done so already, there's a like button down there. It looks like a thumb. If you press it, the thumb gets full. Yeah, do that. Fill it up. And by all means, leave us any feedback or comment down in the section below. I don't want to waste too much time because I guarantee you, Frederick and I will go longer than we're supposed to. It's just what it is. So let me get ready to woosah it out so that we can do this. And I'm going to breathe it and count it out, and then we're going to flow. Here we go. I need one last sip of coffee. You know, it's freaking early in the damn morning over here. That's good coffee. This is actually from James Coffee in San Francisco. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Yes, Jackie, you know what time it is. All right, here we go. Counting it down in 5, 4. Aloha, Flow Riders, and welcome to another edition of The Flow. Today, I would be riding solo because Katie is in freaking Italy. Ciao bella, arrivederci, whatever. I forgot how to speak Italian. I've been away from New York too long. So Katie is having a good time in Italy. And you know what? I said, let me bring in a substitute teacher to come and kick it with us today. And there's a song. And I brought 2 friends along. And next on the mic is my man, Hank. Come on, Hank, sing that song. No, today I am bringing to you an incredible creator, photographer, podcaster, writer, dad, like all kind of things. And it's going to be my homie, Frederick Van Johnson. If you have been around the photography space, you know exactly who he is because he's all over the place. But he has a fantastic podcast that I swear has been running since we used to do podcasts with pigeons. So I thought it would be a good idea to bring a seasoned podcast. And, you know, that is a colloquialism for old. So I thought I would bring in a seasoned podcaster to come and talk to you guys today, and I cannot wait. So without further ado, Mr. Luis, producer supreme, could you please drop in Mr. Frederick Van Johnson? I feel like I need those and pull the little thing, and then it poof, comes out the little bottle. What do you call it? Poppers. That's what it's called. Oh, that's God. Okay, Frederick, I can't hear. Not Frederick. Luis, I can't hear Frederick. It's good. I mean, I don't really need to hear from him, but today I think they might need to hear him.
Unfortunately, it seems like it's on his end because I'm not getting anything.
Oh, unmute yourself, Frederick.
Is this thing on?
Is
this thing on?
Now we got
it.
Now we got it. Okay, let's run that back
in the silent zone.
Let me make it easier for you to edit. I'm just going to say, Luis, go ahead and bring in Frederick Van Johnson, give you a clean place to cut. Without further ado, and much to my chagrin, Luis, could you please bring on Mr. Frederick Van Johnson? There we go.
There you go. There's my sound effect.
And the crowd goes to sleep. Yay. No, I'm just joking.
And the crowd walks out of the room.
How you been?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. This is gonna be a good conversation. I'm relying on you to keep it on the rails though, because you know.
Oh man, you know that's never fitting to happen. And you two just came back from vacation too, right?
I did. Yeah. We did a company offsite up in Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, at the Coeur d'Alene Resort up there, and. You know, I was I never had Idaho on my list, let's say, of destinations I wanted to visit. After that, it's on my list. That place was nice.
Yeah, and they have for photography anyway. There's some good things to shoot out there. Of course, all I really know about Idaho is Pocatello. but I
Yeah,
hear there's cool places to shoot out there, and yeah, I have
absolutely.
Idaho on my list, and of course, I like to go back to Indiana because Notre Dame is what it
Yeah.
is. So today, I wanted to have you on because this show is really about helping people who are diving into podcasting. Right now, we've been heavily focused on video podcasting because as Ecamm, of course, we make it super simple for people to generate video podcasts. And you have video podcasts and you
I
use
do.
a program called what?
Do you really want me to? It's a competitive app. No, I use Ecamm. Yeah, absolutely. I've been using Ecamm since the beginning. I've been using Ecamm since it was a camera recorder or whatever.
Yeah,
That was
Skype call
way.
recorder. Yeah, same here. It's
Yeah,
super
yeah.
funny
There
to
you go.
think
Skype
about
call
it.
recorder.
We used to do that Skype call recorder thing way back in our 2 all days. And then, so believe it or not, Skype call recorder still kind of exists because we have some people that are in there that haven't quite moved over to the the Silicon space. But yeah, it's kind of funny when I came back to it. And I think the other thing that cracks me up every time I think about it, Printopia. Like, man, that was life. Anybody that was in our space that needed to print stuff, especially back when color printers were not very friendly to Mac stuff.
Mhm.
My Tektronix wax freaking printer, whatever the hell that thing was called, Phase. That's
You're
what it
going way
calls.
back.
Tektronix Phase something. Anyway, I had to use Printopia, which was again Ken and Glenn. So the boys have been holding my life together for longer than I wish to think.
Yeah, yeah. Finding
Especially since they look
solutions.
young still. Most people don't even know that, they're not exactly young. They look super young. It's kind of irritating. Anyway, so tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, a little bit or a lot of it. Like you said, it's seasoned or over seasoned. I don't know. So it is this week in photo. Thisweekinphoto.com it's a photography podcast. It started off as sort of that roundtable format that's popular today. And it is by the name, right? The description's in the name. It's about what happened this week in photography. That was the overall goal, is just give people kind of an update and some opinionated perspectives on whatever happened in the industry with no kind of filtration or anything. Just like, this happened and it's great, or this happened and it's BS or whatever. So that's the way it started. Like you said, about 12 years ago, the podcast began, and since then it's evolved from, quote, just an audio podcast into a video podcast, a community, a school, online training essentially, and a bunch of other things. I do talks around the country, and it's just been going and going. And last year, actually, as we speak right now, what is today's date?
Today
August
is August
1st.
1.
August 1, 365 days ago, my podcast was acquired by SmugMug. This is my 1 year anniversary of being acquired by SmugMug today. So SmugMug acquired the podcast, and now we're an operating division of SmugMug alongside Flickr, SmugMug, and all that. So that's where we are. So happy birthday to TWiP.
Wow. That is freaking crazy. I just realized too, I believe we started the flow. It was the first week of August. It wasn't August 1st. I think it was August 6th. But I think we started the flow August 6th of last year. I have to double check with my Katie, but because we just started. It's one of those things, we always tell people, just start. Like, don't wait for
Yeah.
anything, just go. Companies selling a
Yeah.
company, they tend to pick a hard date because it just works great for accounting and paperwork and all myriad things. But yeah, I literally believe we just started like a year ago too. So both of us are celebrating birthdays, Flow Riders.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
We'll have to have a drink later.
Man, it's cool. Like the idea, one of the things everyone talks about, right? Everyone always talks about like, hey, like how am I going to monetize my podcast? How am I going to not monetize my podcast? You actually took it further and built it all the way up and then straight up sold it,
Yeah.
which is cool. Right. And that had to have been hard though. Like, how did you come to that breakpoint decision? Should I stay or should I go now? Like, do you keep it or do you let it loose? Was that tough?
That's a really good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was like I don't know. If you want to start from the beginning of when I first started having the inklings of having the podcast be acquired or be part of a larger company, it had to be like 18 months, 2 years maybe before I signed on the dotted line with SmugMug. And the whole the impetus of it was a whole group of things, from COVID happening and family stuff happening, and it's just a bunch of things were happening. And I was like, so there's twofold. On the creative side, I was already thinking it was time to, I don't know, control alt delete and restart the show, and make it fresh, do something different, change the branding, change the music, change the length of the episodes, all the things, and just push it out like a proper Jeff Walker product launch again, make it, just refresh it. So that was goal number one. And then goal number two was, in order to be sane, I need to have consistent recurring income every month in order to maintain the lifestyle to which I've been accustomed. Right? So I need, so AKA, and during COVID, as a solopreneur and the charter of your own destiny and journey, that income is up and uncertain. And, we were freaking out here and spraying our packages and doing all the things. And then money's crazy. So I was like, okay, all right, I need to take a step back. I need to figure out how to make this completely stable, because I don't want the stress of fluctuating income. And then B, I need to figure out if I want to continue doing that particular show, This Week in Photo, or do I want to just scrap it and do something completely different, not leave podcasting, but just delete it, or just end it in sunset and say, hey, it's been a great run, everybody. Now I'm starting this new thing over here. Come over here. So those were all the things that were swirling around in my head. Like, okay, how do I do it? And I've known the SmugMug folks since, oh man, for at least 10 years. I've known them since I was at Adobe. I met them when I was working as a product manager at Adobe. And I was having lunch with one of the folks over there, and we are just talking about it. And, fast forward, we came to an agreement on numbers and how TWiP would be positioned within the company. And I'll tell you, inside baseball, my initial thought when I first started thinking about having TWiP be part of a larger company was, maybe it's obviously a photography company, right? So I was like, maybe some larger photography company will take TWiP, will acquire TWiP, and they can make it another part of the organization, kind of like not a whole division of the company, but just another part of the organization. Here's Frederick doing the podcast. Here's Joe over there doing the website. I thought it would be more in that line. But as I got to speaking with SmugMug, it became evident that, hey, let's make this bigger, and let's make This Week in Photo be part of the trifecta of photography brands. So SmugMug, Flickr, and now This Week in Photo, which for me, those are million dollar companies, right? And then my little rowboat over here, like my rowboat gets to row alongside those giant cruise ships. I was like, when, from however you look at it, from a branding perspective, that's a win, right? So yeah, so that felt good. It felt good.
At the spot, you roll up at the spot, and there's this dude, right? You look at him like, say something silly while you look in the back and check to make sure you got your two linebacker friends behind you. That's sort of what it's like. Man, that's an incredible ride, especially because as a creator, like one of the things that you always want to do is sort of make sure that, not only do you have your ducks in a row and the financials are okay, but we put out a product that has our own taste, our own spin, our own values in it. And you don't want to see that sort of get like, smashed up and pushed to the side and just become part of something else's sauce. So it was cool that you structured it in a manner that allowed you to keep being you, keep doing what you do. Your people, your audience, whatever, has a certain expectations of the product that you're going to deliver, and you're still able to do that. So I think that is absolutely fantastic. Eden brings up something cool in the chat. She's like, we all hit a point where we need to hit the refresh button. So she's loving the story. And it's really funny that she said that, because I swear, like right before I went on vacation, I did a stream talking about that mid-year refresh. Something I like to do every year. July 2nd is basically the halfway point of the year. I love to just, back up, look at everything and be like, all right, we good? We good? If not, let's make some adjustments, like course correct. I mean, you're military, you know what it is. You got to check the map, check your coordinates. Hey, we're going to be off by like 6 degrees, and depending on how far you're
Yeah.
walking, that could be like 50 miles off. So you just readjust, because you're navigating trees or ditches
Yeah.
or,
But in that example, Doc, though, in the military example, typically you're with other people, right, that are
right,
doing other
right.
things, and you can bounce ideas off of them. Like, should we go over that hill, or should we go straight, or should we do this? No, we shouldn't go over there because look at you're like, oh yeah, you're right, we shouldn't go over there. When you're solo, all eyes
Yeah,
on
it's
me,
you.
right?
It's all you. It's a good thing I got like 17 personalities to help me out. Because yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have empathy, man. I had to do it solo.
No, I mean in my head. I mean completely in my head. So, and I like the fact that you're able to, to basically take a product that is very valuable to the community and make sure that there's a sustainability. And I guess before we get that far into it, like if you had to go back and do it all again, what steps would you take that are the same? And what steps would you take that would be different in the launching of the original? Because a lot of our people are still in that beginning phase.
Yeah, yeah, really good question. To be honest with you, there's not a whole lot I would change. Not to say that I don't make mistakes, make a lot of mistakes, but my mindset around mistakes are that I learn from them, and I needed to go down that path to figure out that that's not for me, or that thing didn't work, or all day long you can have in your brain, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to set this thing up and have the camera over there, and it's not until you actually do it do you realize, oh, this focal length does not work for this shot. I need to do this, or the lighting is bad, or too much ambient coming in from out, all these things on the technical side, or even, if you have the idea of, I want to do an interview type podcast. Great. You've seen a million of them online, but not everybody is cut out to do that. Not everybody, not that the people that are cut out to do it have superpowers. It's more of, not everybody just gets into having conversations in front of large groups of people, virtual or otherwise, and can do it and feel comfortable doing it, which means you have to try it first, right? So you have to try it
Correct.
and see how it fits, and like, oh yeah, I kind of like this. This is cool. Let me do more of this. And part of my mindset when I do shows, even this show, I'm a guest here and I'm taking notes on how you guys are doing this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want to, this remote production thing is interesting. Let me see if I can implement that in the stuff that I do. So I'm always sort of
I got a
thinking of
guy.
different
His
ways.
name is Luis. You might have met him.
Yeah. Very.
Hey,
Yeah, I want a man in the bubble.
I'm gonna pop this in the chat real quick because there was a famous quote by a world-renowned poet, very eloquent with her words, but one of her famous quotes is, "Ain't nothing to it but to do it." And I understand why we're friends now, because I'm the same as you. I think the mistakes are hyper important, and I want to make sure that all the flow riders listen to that and write it down, put it on their freaking foreheads, because I have people in my crew who I love to death, but I want to shake them because they're still stuck on perfection. And I'm trying to tell them you can't do that. As a Virgo, as an ex-military person, just as me being me, like, I'm a hyper perfectionist, but it is not helpful to your journey in any way, shape, or form. Right?
Yeah.
You have
Progress,
to
not perfection.
get slick. Right. I'll use the Air Force as a perspective. Right. When we get ready to fly and we're about to leave somewhere and we know that we don't have the fuel that's required, we have to lose some weight. And we don't mean like, hey, go to the gym, you fat butt, like me. We mean we have to take out any unnecessary equipment that is not going to serve the mission, and we just leave it on the ground. It's called a hasty displacement. In the Army, when we're on the ground with no flying, we need to move quickly, and heavy stuff is going to slow us down. So we'll leave entire tents. We'll leave extra parts, like all myriad things that will be too heavy for the troop movement at that time. So when you guys are carrying around this perfection baggage, Think of it like that. We're an airplane that's low in fuel. We need to cut some weight and just let that baggage go, Elsa. Let it go. And just, boom. You can't. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
the other side of it is, that 100% that, but the other side is also fear. So it's easy to say, we need to do this hasty displacement and get rid of, throw these sandbags over so the hot air balloon can keep going. But what if you are attached to those hot air balloons, for some
Oh,
reason,
100%.
and you're like,
100%.
this one can't go because I love this, but it really should. So as a solopreneur, a person doing this alone, you have to be able to make those decisions. At least, in one of the ways that I'm able to make those decisions is I believe nothing is permanent, right? Everything is temporary. Everything's a trial. So you can always roll back and do something else. And that word fear, I think, paralyzes people. Fear of the unknown. Like what was the quote from Dune, the old Dune? Fear is the mind killer, right?
Yep.
So fear is the mind killer. And once you, not to say that you can conquer fear, but once you recognize that the world is not going to end if I do A, B, and C. So let me try to do A, B, and C. And rolling back to what we talked about before, once I've tried it, now I have that experience in my belt, whether I succeeded or failed, and I can make decisions based on that. If you've never tried that thing, i.e. podcasting or doing interviews or just solo live streams, long form monologues, if you never tried it, then you don't know if you like it or if you can do it, if you can't do it, and you don't know all the little tangents that go into doing it. So you got to
Right.
walk down that path with your flashlight in order to see where all the potholes and poison ivy are before you can make the decision on if you want to keep walking that direction. So yeah,
It's
it's
funny you
interesting.
say that. I never thought about this, but I tend to use fear as it's almost like a litmus test, but after the fact. So what I do is I align my fear with after what happened. I do an after action report. Oh God, we're going way military today.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right. When I'm terrified of something, I do it, but I have full account of my fear in my head. And at the end, I compare my fear notes to what really happened. And it's a reminder to me the next time that, you don't have to be feared. I mean, like, for the most part, your body will protect your body. And for the most part, your brain won't let you do something super catastrophic. The
Right.
people that have that, unfortunately, there's something wrong with them. They're a different boat. But if you are of sound mind and body, that's most of us except Eden. You just do it anyway, and then compare notes after. And then after
Yeah.
you compare the notes, 9 times out of 10, you will realize that your fears were somewhat unfound. And then once you get used to that action, I like to, whenever you complete a task, this is super important, people. Whenever you complete a task that you were terrified of doing, make sure you celebrate the fact that you did it anyway. Make sure you celebrate the fact that you pushed through it. And remember that. Remember that feeling. And those feelings for me are stronger than my feelings of fear. So the first time I rolled up to the door on the C-130 and I looked down, I was like, what you idiot, what the hell are you doing here? And I jumped anyway. And then
Yeah.
after you hit the ground, I was like, can we do it again, boss? Can we do it again? And
I was exactly the same way.
well, it's super funny because you say that when you're on the ground, but every time you hit the door, you ask yourself, why am I doing it again? Because it's like rolling craps. One of these days you're going to miss. So it's
Yep.
funny because I
And
have
that's
the experience and I've already gone through it. But every time I would hit that door, and I was Halo, so somewhere between 18 and 20,000 feet, I would hit that door and be like, you dummy, you doing this again? And then,
yeah. Yeah. And it's that resistance point. That resistance point you're talking about, that's the barrier that separates the people that are more likely to succeed from people that aren't, right? Because it's that thick barrier, like when you're jumping out of a plane, right? Your every fiber in your being is like, don't do this. I want to live.
you have not
There is a
wings,
chance
good
that we
sir.
won't. If this is an unnecessary risk for you, I'm not going to let you do it. That's what was going through my head when I first jumped, right? It's like my body was literally involuntarily holding the door. It's like, and my tandem partner had to literally push me out. And once you're out, though, once I was out of that
Yep.
plane and free falling, it was great because your brain then switches to, well, can't do anything about it anyway. Might as well enjoy it. Right?
Yeah,
So you're
man,
free. Well,
I wish the
yeah.
song came out when I first jumped. The song came out later, but I would have been like, "But I'm free falling." Yeah,
Pull
it's
the cord, Doc.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
one of those things. And again, I highly suggest everyone do it, especially those of you fraidy cats out there. Doing that alone will make you no longer afraid of anything else. Like if you can come out of the sky, and they used to tell us in basic, don't two things fall out of the sky: BS and fools. Bird, actually, not bull. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll be foolish. And the first day you go to camp, I had this really, really short instructor, right? I think he was like 5'8". He goes, when I started this, I was 6'1". And we all like, we're kids, right? We look at him like, wait, really? Is that possible?
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. So diving in a little deeper, when you are setting yourself up for your show, what would you say are the 3 things that are like hyper important to you when it comes to producing your show? Now, I've been a guest on your show twice, so I think I kind of understand what they are, but I want to hear your side of it.
Only 3. It's a chain. I mean, of things that need to be dialed in. So I'm gonna disobey the teacher until.
Get about as many as you
Okay.
want.
Okay. So, and these are things that I've learned over the years. So, if you're planning on doing a podcast, take notes, right? So, first thing that hit me that I didn't expect when I first started interviewing photographers around the world was I discounted the importance or the inconvenience, let's say, of time zones and scheduling. It seems simple, but just saying, hey, John Doe, you gonna be on my show? And back in the day, I'd say, yeah, you want to come on at noon on Thursday? Sure. John Doe's in Australia. His noon on Thursday is different than my noon on Thursday. So we'd miss and then have to do 30 emails to re-coordinate. So long story short, I solved that by using a software as a service called Calendly. There are many others. It's just the one I use right now. And
Me too.
it handles that. I just send them a link and it's plugged into my Google Calendar. I've already specified my availability for interviews, and it looks at their calendar, looks at my calendar, picks a time that's convenient for both of us, puts it on our calendars with all the notes that they've input into Calendly, along with the link to join my Ecamm, and boom, everybody's happy. So that's the first thing. That was a big nugget to solve, is to get that level of automation in place. So if I'm at a trade show and I meet some CEO or something, like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? Sure. I could just give him my shortened URL, which I have, right? And which takes him to my Calendly, easy to remember. Just go here and book yourself, find a convenient time. And that's it. From that point forward, it's all automated. They get reminder emails, they get all the things. So it went from being a hassle scheduling everything to just butter. So I would highly recommend doing that. That's one. The second thing is, once you've scheduled everything, we could talk for days about setups and just sort of post-production and all that. But my flow, as you and I have talked about before, Doc, my flow was, back in the day, I literally had multiple computers in order to bring in guests. And this came from Leo Laporte up at TWiP, This Week in Technology. Leo had a, I don't know if he still does it now, but he had a Skype machine that he would bring people into, and then NDI those people over to another machine and set that. And I was replicating that in my little home office, with my little Mac Minis and doing all that. And it worked sometimes, but somehow it had some sort of magic in it that it would fail when I had a really high level important guest. Just every single time it would fail. It was just complexity. I had this I literally had to be in my office an hour before I was going to do an interview in order to get everything working. It's like a Rube Goldberg mechanism in there, trying to get it all dialed in and working. Like, okay, we're ready. And then they dial in through Skype, and everybody knows Skype, at least back in the day, was not the most stable app in the world. So they'd come in and their audio wouldn't be right or whatever. So it was just a comedy of complexity trying to get just one interview done. Went through a lot of trials and tribulations, and then play the angel singing music. Ecamm was the savior of that. Like literally, and I was saying this before I met you, Doc. Ecamm was the app that I was able to literally get rid of all that complexity and run this one app on my machine and do most of everything I needed to do. And in the beginning, Ecamm, when I first started it, it didn't have the guest dial-in feature. So, I still had to do some jumping around to get that done. But when that dial-up feature, the guest feature came in, that was it. I was done. Pretty much I had a studio in a box. So Ecamm made all of that stuff less complex. So now I can bring in guests, they're scheduled, they click this link, they're in my Ecamm, and I can do the interview. So those two things. And then the third thing on that is in the post-production side of it. And I'm jumping over hardware and lighting and all that stuff. But on the post-production side of it, when I first started doing the podcast or doing it through video, I was recording each track separately and doing a sort of a multicam edit of everything, bringing all the individual ISOs into Final Cut and spending time, jumping between shots and doing my 2-shot and doing all that stuff. Literally for an hour-long interview would take me, I don't know, maybe 3 hours plus of time to get it edited down to where I wanted it. So at one point I had this mindset shift of, what if we did it live to tape? And I mastered the skill of being able to switch my cameras and do all the stuff that I'd be doing in editing, but do it live. So then I end up with a MP4 file or MOV file that's pretty much ready to go, needing very little editing, maybe some compression on the audio or limiting or whatever and trimming on the ends. But if my idea was if I could just build a template in Final Cut, drop in the interview into it, make some changes, throw a lower third up there, export it out as video and audio, I could shave hours off of my time, which is what I did. So with those three things, the scheduling, Ecamm, and then templatizing in Final Cut from the live to tape edit that I do of the interviews, it literally made it so that I could continue the show. I think TWiP probably would have concluded maybe 3 or 4 years ago had it not been for that constellation, that tripod of things that I was able to put in place. So if you're going to do this, I would suggest doing that.
You're such a photographer, that tripod of things.
You got it though. You got the visual.
100%, bro. This is my exposure triangle of podcasting things.
Right.
When one moves, they all move, right?
Yeah.
Man, that is really good. And it's funny because it seems oversimplistic, especially, we're talking to the Ecamm crew, but somebody's going to see this that's not one of us and they'll be like, okay, I get it now. But one of the things that Katie and I have been pushing so hard lately is have your Ecamm set up and ready to go at all times. We have a mentality of ABR, which is always be recording. And the reason for that is now, and this actually touches into a little bit of the AI thing. I sent you a text the other day talking about audio pen. And I just did a whole video for my members. And I believe in like 30 minutes, the video that I edited a little bit will end up on YouTube. But this is an application that allows you to just speak the way we're talking right now, and it will turn it into a readable like post. So where this comes in handy is I have so much crap in my head and I got to get it out because I need space for the new stuff, right? And so what happens is I can just pop open my phone or my voice recorder or whatever and just, wax to it for a little bit and then stop and then send that to Audio Pen. Audio Pen will write it in a manner that's cohesive for muggles to absorb, not me. Take out all of the fluff and BS. And I don't have to edit it the way I would when I go into script. I still got to edit, right? It actually kind of does a fantastic job of getting to the crux of it. And I don't even bother cleaning it. I'm like, I'm going to leave this alone. I just send it out via ConvertKit to the audience and just call it a day. And what that does is that frees up that thing. When you're feeling, let's see, creatively constipated, it's because you need to let something out. And what normally people do is when they feel creatively constipated, they stop creating. So that whole mentality of a writer's block is like, oh, I can't write. Why? Because I'm stuck. Turns out when you're constipated, you need to drop a deuce. So if you're quote unquote creative block or writer's block, create something more. It could be create something different. Like pick up a hammer and a nail and start whacking some crap, and it'll come out. Like it will let's come out. Like your creative outlet might not be the one you're akin to. It might not be shooting a video, it might not be taking a picture. And this is why I did something really simplistic, like going out and buying that Ricoh, is because it's such a simple camera that when I'm feeling creatively constipated, I just go out and just take random shots with a point and shoot camera that does not allow my tweaker brain to tweak. I just got to take them. And now you got to buy a camera, people. You got an iPhone. Go outside, follow my
Ricoh
boy
laxative.
Yeah, it's a Ricoh laxative, right? Follow my boy Jeff Graham and grab your iPhone and go out there and try to do something with your iPhone that you wouldn't normally do. Take photos that you wouldn't normally take. Take some macro photos with your iPhone in your neighborhood or, in your neighborhood, whatever. Just get out there, take some photos, and then come back and look at them and, think of something. I don't know, just you can't hold it in, fam. Like it will really mess up your whole entire brain. So I like what you said. I like the whole concept of making it simple, because that is the key to consistency, is make it repeatable.
Yeah.
100.
Yeah. If you set up a landmine field for you to walk through every time you want to produce content, and occasionally you get blown up, you're not going to want to walk through that field anymore, right? So you have to make it. You got to make it as streamlined and as lubricated as possible. Like in my studio here in the home office, right? It's set up so I could just turn the lights on, turn the camera on, and I'm ready to go, run Ecamm, and I am literally ready to go. And it works every time. My idea when everything's set up in here, the idea was to make it as bulletproof as the electricity in the house. Well, I'm in California, so that may not be a good analogy, but I wanted it to be as bulletproof as a utility, right? When you turn the faucet, water is going to come out. When you plug something in, you're going to get some juice. I wanted it to be like that versus, what if every time you plug something in, you had to oh crap, I need to reboot the outlet. I'm not getting power out of this one. It needed to be bulletproof in order for me to get done.
The way that people buy like a 1RS or whatever, and sorry, that's an Insta360, to buy a Canon, EOS R, and then just leave it in auto. That's the way our setups are. It's fully capable. They can do all kind of crazy stuff, but you know what? It's set up in auto. I come in, I sit down, I just record. And I think the important thing also for those people who are getting used to, like you and I, we can just talk like this all day. Like it's not a thing. We don't freak out. There's no panic zone or whatever. All those mistakes have already been made, right? I just want people to realize that this is not a skill that you can buy. This is not a skill you're born with. This is not a skill that's available at the Piggly Wiggly, the Walmart, or Amazon, or worse yet, Shein. The only way to be able to do what we're doing right now is to have thousands of hours on the mic. And that requires you to stop being scared and just start. So even if you, even if you do that, start there, because you will never get to this. You can't just go outside and run a marathon. I am sorry. Nobody can hit 26 miles on day one. It's impossible.
Yes. The road to success begins with a single step, right? You gotta have your long white beard when you say that. Yeah, and it's true. I remember when I was going through photography training in the Air Force, one of the instructors I remember told me, he used the analogy of, he's like, what finger do you use to press the shutter button? I was like, this one. He goes, there's probably about 10,000 bad shots in there that are blocking the good shots that are waiting to get out of your finger. And the only way to get them out is to press that button. So you got to keep pressing.
No, that is so good. You remember freaking Pez before they started with the all flavors? In the beginning, it wasn't all one flavor. Before, it used to be like an assortment. And so you had to constantly be opening the Batman to get to the one kind of like orange. I like the orange flavor one. And so you just like, and like when one of those yellow joints would come out, I would give it to my sister. Here, eat this. And she's like, I don't want one. I'm like, well, don't waste it, And she taught me, oh, look, you can open it and put it at the bottom.
So, hacking the Pez.
Hacking the Pez. I can't believe we just brought up Pez. We old.
You're old. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what this Pez stuff is you're talking about.
Oh my God. Red Pez was the best and Snoopy was my favorite. That's what Eden said. Oh my God. Yeah, but it's funny, Ray. I love that analogy that you have really gotta in that you're blocking the good shots with the bad shots. So you gotta get the bad shots out. So you might as well just let them out. That is very, very fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah, it's true.
what's in the future for your podcast? Like where do you see your podcast going? And I guess add a little bit about the video podcasting, like how that's changed the landscape. Like I think weird because you and I, people don't do what I just did. Listen closely. Don't like ask a question and then add some extra stuff. But I have to in this case because otherwise I forget. We have both been video podcasting before everyone was like video podcasting too much work. So it's different for us because I've video podcast since like the second week of podcasting. As soon as Apple made it available back in 2009, I was making video podcasts. But anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, the road to doing video podcasts was interesting for This Week in Photo. We were the podcast was an audio podcast up until around the era of Google Hangouts. Remember that? So when Google Hangouts showed up and Google was doubling down on Google Photos and all that, I'm like, okay, this thing's gonna be around forever. Why don't we just use that, as our infrastructure, for the podcast? Instead of doing it through Skype or whatever, we'll just all meet in a Hangout. We'll record that, and that becomes the show. We may have to do some tweaking to the audio, but that we can get over that. So that's where we started. And then, of course, Google pulled the plug on Hangouts and it became less popular. And there were other issues involved with that. But I'd already started publishing video on the YouTube channel, on the TWiP YouTube channel. So like, okay, what else can we do? So that was the impetus of moving into the video side of the house. For me, back then, like I said, that whole Rube Goldberg setup for video, that was the hot coals. That was the landmine. But that landmine has already been demined, to continue the analogy. And people that want to start now don't have to worry about that. There are these amazing tools out there that let you do this stuff. Not only tools, but even places where you can distribute your video, whether it be YouTube Shorts, TikTok, all these different places that are popping up where you can put the video or syndicate or distribute your video. And so I don't remember where the point of inflection was, but the audio side of This Week in Photo was still the most popular and most downloaded, listened to of all the things we do. The video side of it was a rounding error to begin with. It was more of like, you know what, let's do this audio podcast and we'll throw the video up for people that feel like they want to see, right? It was secondary. Even till today, it's kind of still that way a little bit. So it was, it was secondary. But now, as the video is starting to take the forefront in a lot of ways for the kind of content I produce, it's making more sense to lean into the video side much more heavily. So then how do you do that? So back to what I was saying about the introduction or the launch of TWiP, or the relaunch or the should I kill it? Should I stay or should I go now moment of This Week in Photo? That the part of that mindset was that reset and redoing TWiP. And what will likely happen over the coming weeks, months will be you'll see TWiP shift from the one-on-one interview format primarily back into the roundtable discussion format. But now we can do it much easier using the tools that are available today, right? So now I can build the whole program in Ecamm and bring all the guests in and, maybe even go as far as having a remote producer, the man in the bubble, that handles everything behind the scenes. So, all that. So leaning into that, I've been, studying really hard to understand how This Week in Photo and my demographic market might benefit from TikTok. And if we start publishing and syndicating shorts on TikTok and that sort of thing. So, the people in my audience, when I bring that up to them, they're all like, oh, in the community, TikTok, I am not going to have anything to do with TikTok. And I'm like, Okay, that's fine, but it's just because you said that, it's not going away, right?
Straight up,
So
100%, 100%.
you know, so
Um,
my regardless of how I feel about it, or if I agree with the content out there, or the politics behind it being a Chinese company, whatever, it is a force in the market that cannot be ignored. And as a military
correct.
guy, I am not going to ignore it, right? So I'm going to learn
Exactly.
it and see if it makes sense for us to engage there.
Well, see, here's where it all it gets kind of funny. So for me, like I'm a YouTube first and foremost, always going to be, right? I
Hmm.
started doing a lot of stuff to IG because, like Eden just said, TikTok is a funnel. IG is, I call them discovery channels. Your TikTok, your IG, your LinkedIn, all the above. Those are the discovery channels. That's where people discover you, and then they go and hunt for your real deal Holyfield, right? I found Cardi B as a feature on another track. And then she featured on another track. And then I was like, wait a minute, does she got an album out? And then you go look, and no, she don't. And then like 3 weeks later, boom, Cardi B, okay. Then the album comes out. And then now you're like, man, this is dope, right? This is
Yeah,
dope.
yeah,
I'll be making money moves now, right? So every
yeah.
artist starts out with a discovery feature, right? And some people, if you remember that irritating little crap Ja Rule, like he featured on everything. He was on like 50
Yeah,
features before he ever put a song out. So that's the same
yeah.
thing. The idea of like TikTok or Instagram or whatever, it's like doing features on somebody else's thing. You pop up, DJ Clue, new stuff, and then I want to punch him in the face so bad because he used to ruin all the good songs with that. Now it's Luis's lookalike, DJ Khaled. Another one, Major Killer.
DJ Khaled.
Don't Luis look like DJ Khaled?
He did a little bit. Yeah.
Look,
He's
man.
got their product. He's got their product in his beard. You see that?
Oh my God. You know what I'm saying? So in a way, yes, it's very important that you do these things and you sort of figure out how they fit for you. And
Yeah.
I'm agree. I have always kind of kicked TikTok to the curb a little bit because I just didn't think that I would find any of my audience over there. Turns out demographically, people in our age bracket are massive on TikTok. And I agree
Yeah.
with you.
That's what I learned.
You can't ignore it, right? And you can't get
Yeah.
hyper twisted up in the politics because every application has somebody peed off about something, right? So right now, if we were going to let it get political, there's people that mad at YouTube because YouTube is being a little bit more strict about letting people just say heinous things, and they're calling it lack of free speech. And it's like, you ain't supposed to say that out loud. You're
Right.
supposed to hide in a little room and get your little people together and talk about how
Yeah.
cool Nikons are by yourself. Because in this world, you about to get hurt by the Sony folks. I wasn't gonna let a whole
Yeah.
show slide. I was not gonna let a whole show slide
It's like,
without
oh, I got
telling
to get that in there. Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right, and that's why. Again, that's probably why we're friends. We share a similar mindset with that because it's if you look at if you boycott all of the products that are out there that are either produced or have someone behind them that espouses something that you disagree with, you're not getting anywhere. To be honest with you, I mean, everything for the most part, you're not buying a Tesla. You're not looking through a telescope because what's his name? Hubble, Sir Edwin
right,
Hubble or whatever, who discovered the Hubble constant about the universe, apparently was a raging racist and homophobic guy, right? So
yeah,
but he discovered this thing, right? So are you going to say, well, you know what? All of astrophysics is great except all of this expansion of the universe stuff because that guy, I don't agree with his ideology. You got to at some point you have to shift gears and be like, okay, I'm about growth for me and mine, and how can I use the tools that are available to me at this point in time with blinders on to get that thing done. Whether it be, I have a goal to make, $50,000 a month. That's my goal. If I can get there, I'll feel successful, or even $5,000 a month. If I can get there, I will feel successful by any means necessary, right? So that's I think that's the formula, or the flawed formula of being able to be aware of what's going on around you and a little bit of the history of the tools that you need to use, and making a smart, less emotional decision about what you employ to get to your ultimate goal, because you're not going to get to that goal without rubbing shoulders with people that have ideas that you don't agree with. You need to just sort of press
And
forward
you
and
got
get your stuff
discoveries
done.
there. There's discoveries
Yeah.
there that you didn't even know about. And you just made me think of something. This is super crazy. I wonder how many people listening to this right now remember what a hydrox is. My mom was a beautiful lady, really sweet, super smart, absolute cheap ass. Okay, Mom, I want some Oreo cookies. Okay, go to the store, and she come back with a big, gigantic 4 rows of hydrox. Mama, what? This ain't Oreos? Yeah, it is. It's the same thing. No, Mama. Oreos say Oreo. This is HY-DROX. This is not Oreos. She's like, boy, until you start buying Oreos, then you eat these. Okay.
Yeah.
So first bite, I'm like, working. George is high. George is saying Hydrox is better than Oreo. I thought me and George was friends. I am deleting George from my phone book right now. So
You got to delete me too, because I've never even had Hydrox.
oh, good. Don't. Okay. So what I discovered was this is so crazy. How you make the Hydrox work though is you just take out your little butter knife or the other half because their stuff didn't stick like Oreos, so you can just peel it off and throw it. It was kind of like one piece of the cream part in the middle, and so you should just throw it out, and I would just eat the outside. And then I was like, hold up, this is actually pretty good. So then when I could finally get to my dad's house and be like, Mom bought me Hydrox, and my dad would be like, I ain't letting you go out like that. So my dad always tried to one up Mom. So he would get the Oreos. He would give me 2 packs, including the light skinned Oreos, the white, the yellow one. So then I figured out
You had the red
that,
bone
like,
Oreos.
yeah, right. I figured out that you try to scrape the inside out of this and taste it. And what I discovered is I love outside onlys. I am the O's guy. You can take the re and just throw them out. And so to this day, now you can actually buy a box of just the O's. You can skip the re. You can go on Amazon right now. You can buy an entire box of just the outside. And to this day,
Oh my
like
God.
I pretty much eat my Oreos with nothing in there. And then yeah,
I
did.
would tell you a secret, Doc. Those are called
What?
cookies. Just saying.
Yeah, I know. This is true facts, right? And oh God, and God forbid when they came out with half breed Oreos with the yellow on one side and then the brown one on the other. Like, look, racial equality Oreos, y'all need to stop. Them joints wasn't good. They wasn't good either. I'm down for racial equality, but not in my Oreos. All right, I'm just saying.
Keep it
So
out.
now
Keep it out of my
I don't eat
Oreos.
Oreos. Yeah, keep it out of my Oreos. I don't eat Oreos at all anymore because now I know what that white stuff is. It's basically death. But you would be surprised what you find out when you dig deeper or you try something and you might just get the one part you need. You didn't need the whole Oreo. You just needed the O's. The rest of it can go to hell. Right. And that's what happens with TikTok. You might find you don't need any of the political crap or any of the craziness or the dances or none of that. You might find gold dropping TWiP. That was my weird story. Sorry.
No, yeah, that makes sense. And that dovetails into what I was going to say. When I first started looking at TikTok, I was like, ugh, really? First of all, I ain't getting up there doing the dancing and doing all that stuff. That is not going to happen. So, and then, looking at the demographic in my head, and maybe I had a flawed data source, but I was like, this is not for people in my age range. I will be turning in November. I'll be turning 56. Right. So I was like, do I really want to be the old man in the club sitting in the corner? Like, no, I don't want that look. So maybe that's not a place for TWiP. As I dove deeper and started understanding the platform more, like you said, the demographic is wide on there. And I was looking at one little tiny core sample that it presented to me, and then I dismissed it based on that. When I went back, I've consumed audiobooks on TikTok and seminars and all the things just to kind of get my brain around it because I'm a nerd like that. And I learned that the platform itself is very smart. Is very smart what it's doing.
Extremely smart.
Just from a technical standpoint and a content distribution standpoint is different from the other social networks. So I was intrigued and I got deeper and deeper. Where I am right now on that TikTok journey is it's still on my list, still in Asana, but I'm looking at it from a how what kind of content do I put there? Is it just a short from an interview that I stick up there? Do we produce original content for it? And this is going back to what we talked about, that whole fear thing, right? Fear of the unknown and having to walk the walk before you can understand that path. So in order for me to understand TikTok, like it or not, I'm going to have to start posting on TikTok and maybe fail in the beginning and then get my sea legs and then start producing content appropriate for the platform. So,
There you go.
that's
Go
how it
back
goes.
and look on my channel, and you'll see an interview I did with Rebecca on Opus Clips. And then on the Ecamm channel, there's an interview I did like 3 weeks ago with David Saliba from Memento. Both of those tools will make your job easy. You just give it the YouTube file, and it will generate the shorts for you. And now they both even getting better at taking a shot like this and making it like that, like it knows what to do.
Oh, wow.
And just throw it up there. And you and I are AI people, man. Let the AI do the thing. Tell Iverson, hey, cut this. I'm busy. You'll be good to go. And just start there. And so that's the way you can experiment without putting a lot of time into it. Because contrary to what all the D-bags would tell you on YouTube, sometimes program mode is your friend. You know what I'm saying? When I'm fast paced and I got to get joint done, I trust my body is dope because it's not yellow and black. I trust that my lens is dope. So I can just put it in P mode and go. And all of the guys on YouTube is like, a real photographer doesn't use P mode. That's like saying a real sniper doesn't use a scope. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Okay?
Real drivers don't use automatic, right?
Right. That's a good way to not go home to your mama, right? I'm gonna use whatever tool that's available to me. And when I'm in a hurry, or this is a type of environment where I'm just gonna be shoot, and I want to pay attention to the people and not to my dials like I run a Fuji. Look, man, I don't want to fix watches.
Pitchforks are coming out for you. The Fuji people don't. The Fuji people don't like you. Coming for you.
They outside my door right now. They got the little joint on the stick. Stop picking on Fuji. We're real photographers. I'm sorry.
For the audience, if you guys caught that, Doc has been shooting these subtle, passive aggressive zings at Nikon because he knows I shoot Nikon and it's a superior camera system. So he feels I don't know, inferior when camera body and manufacturers come up. So Doc, maybe I'll send you a Nikon. I need to send you a Nikon so that you can come over to the black and yellow side.
At the end of the day, they're just Sonys with a different outfit on because we make the sense.
They are. And that kind of rivalry, doesn't that rivalry between brands remind you of like, Air Force versus Navy versus Army and all that? At the end of the day, our missions are still the same, right?
100%. Paul is saying, Louise, press the red button. So I can just say, guys, I really wanted you, before we dig out, I just wanted to remind everyone, people, make sure you go and follow Frederick. If you want a good jumping off point, just watch my 2 interviews. I'm joking. He has fantastic stuff on there. And like my people, the people who are here from my side of the thing on my channel, like, you've already been on my show a couple of times. My favorite thing, and this is what I love about being a creator, because you never just know. In your process of being a creator, you will meet people that you're like, how in the hell did we not meet before? Or how do we not know each other before, or whatever? Because that was my relationship with Frederick. We met at a Final Cut Pro Summit, and then it's like we've been in the same circles for so long, just like passing ships in the night. Kind of thing. And then it turns out like we're basically the same cat in 2 different bodies, so many crossover paths or whatever, but you end up finding you have deep connections with people that you run into in your journey. And, I had a similar situation. Like I met Eden at Social Media Marketing World, and we have been doing collaborative stuff together with Ecamm and Camo. She works for Camo, the app that runs your phone as a camera. And then I'm like, she's like one of my best friends. Like Eden is another me, just in a girl format, much better looking and flexible. If I try to do that yoga stuff she does, I'll break something. But like, she is my homie. Like, to the end of the day, like, we can finish each other's sentences because it's just freaking hilarious like that. That's the favoriteest part about being a creator. And this is why, people, I'm telling you, somebody needs to hear what you got to say. And you have no idea, once you open that floodgate, who you're going to bump into that's going to be your ride or die, and you're like in there. So
That's right.
please, going back to what Frederick said at the beginning, you got to shake the fear. Like, it's not serving you. It doesn't help you in any way, shape, or form in this particular case. In the
That's right.
Army, I'll say a little bit of fear kept you alive. But in podcasting or being a content creator, just let it out. Just let it.
Yeah, because you look back at the early This Week in Photo episodes, and you'll see a progression, a progression of of me being comfortable behind the mic. Currently, you're relatively comfortable, to back then literally sweating whenever I had to do anything behind the mic. Like, I'd have to change my shirt after everything I did, because it was just this nervousness that came up. Not let alone public speaking. Like, put me on a stage, and I was a wreck it's kind of like jumping out of a plane, because I was a wreck right up until I had to say the first word, right? All the way up to the
You're so
podium, the
good at it.
microphone. I was a wreck. And then when you say, "Hi, everybody, I'm Frederick Van Johnson," then it just kind of, it dissipates for the most part, because there's no going back at that point, right? So it's very similar feelings. Yeah,
You're
it's
really,
fun.
really good at it. Okay, I got two final questions. One is absolute joke. You know, when you said you weren't
Yeah,
going to dance on TikTok, I'm like, but wait a minute, you
yeah,
got Chicago two-step in you. You should bring that back.
I do.
That used to be the
I
smooth.
should.
At the end
I
of the night,
should.
you did a little smooth dance.
No.
Anyway,
Uh-uh.
this
No.
this one is probably helpful to somebody, because it's something that I even had to mess with a little bit, although I picked my pen name. Most people know what that is. How was it for you to set yourself up to actually brand the FVJ versus using, like, nobody in here, none of my brand named people are in here right now. Normally they're in here, but yeah, everybody in here is using real name game. But like some people, they just put their brand name in the front, and then eventually something happens, right? So do you think you did the right thing, or like what was it like for you to just pick your name as the brand as opposed to something
Yeah.
new? Oh, sorry, Mr.
Great
Camera
question.
Junkie. Thank you. Sorry. Like,
Uh,
I couldn't find nobody, and the freaking producer is Mr. Camera Junkie. Duh.
yeah, how did that go down? So that's a really good question, by the way, because I think it's a really important question a lot of people kind of overlook.
Struggle
And
with, yeah.
yeah, my time when I was at Apple, I was on the Lightroom Aperture team. Remember Aperture? So I was on the marketing team for Lightroom, or not Lightroom, Apple Photos and Aperture, back in the day. And when I remember distinctly going to different events and whatever, and I was always known as the Apple guy. Is Frederick the Apple guy? Let me try to get some free gear out of him, or get some insight on what's coming next, or whatever. But my personal being was tied to this corporation, which is a great corporation, but I was tied to it. When it came time, when I left Apple I left Apple to go be a VP of marketing at a startup down in Santa Monica. So I left them, and I remember having conversations with some noteworthy people in the industry. I was like, "Yeah, I'm leaving Apple. I'm going to go do this thing over here. It's a play, it's a startup, whatever." And the look in their eyes was like, "Okay, he is no longer defined by Apple. Therefore, he doesn't have any value." Right? I could. That was the kind of tone of the conversation, was like, "Oh, you're not Apple anymore? Oh, okay. Well, what are you gonna do now?" So it was kind of like that, and I didn't like that feeling at all. And in my head, I think at that point, I was like, okay, my personal brand needs to be not the forefront in front of other brands that I'm involved with, but it needs to have its own gravity and its own weight. Because if it doesn't, then I'm just an asteroid flying around. I need to have my own gravity so that I can influence objects around me versus being influenced by objects around me. And the more gravity I have, the more things that I can influence, right? So that's where I started that mindset shift of, okay, the Frederick Van brand, I want to start leaning into that more, not to the detriment of other brands, but I need to lean into my own. And part of that mindset shift was thinking of back then, at least, thinking of the companies that I'm working with and for, like in that case, Apple, as instead of in 10 years, I'm going to get a golden watch and a pension and all this stuff. I started thinking of it as they are a revenue stream, even though it's a 9 to 5 and I got benefits and all these other cool things. That is a revenue stream in the overall Frederick Van solar system, as it were. And I have other planets around me. That was just one of the planets in my head. That was the shift I needed to make. Um, and building my own brand alongside TWiP was a very conscious decision. Not that I foresaw that I'd be selling the business in 2023 or 22, but more from the standpoint of, if something happens, like at Adobe, when I was at Adobe, I got laid off, right? 800 people in one day got laid off. Remember that bloodbath?
Yeah.
I got caught up in that. And I remember after that, I was like, I literally got on Google Docs and I built a project called Operation Fireproof, because I was like, this crap ain't happening to me again. I am not being caught with my pants down with all of my marbles in this one bucket, that somebody can just make a decision and screw up my ability to keep my family happy and paid and fed and all that. I was like, okay, that can't happen. So I called it Operation Fireproof, where it was defining multiple revenue streams so that if one went dark, the other ones could keep you going, right? Which seems fundamental at this point. But I use the analogy of a submarine, right? So if you got the submarine gets hit, it's compartmentalized, so one chamber can flood and the thing can still float. So
Yeah.
I actually had a picture of that. It's like, this is a submarine and these are my different chambers, right? One is corporate job, one is this, one is that, boom, boom, boom. What are the chambers that I can build with my brand that allow me to keep afloat if something catastrophic happens? And I would recommend everyone at least think a little bit in that direction, because not to say, some people will be at corporations forever. If you're an employee and you show up 9 to 5, whether in person or virtually, whatever, it's great. But at some point, for me, I did not want to be in that shaky position of, man, if that person for whatever reason doesn't think that I belong at this company anymore, that cannot sink my ship, right? And I love
Straight.
this company. It's great, but I also need to be smart about this. This company doesn't have the company is beholden to their bottom line and to their stockholders, not Frederick, right? And I need to have that same kind of mentality internally. I'm beholden to my planetary gravity and my family, not this company first and foremost. Although we collaborate together, me and the company, to get stuff done to mutual benefit, at the end of the day, I'm going to run into the house to save my family before I run into the burning house to save the corporation. So I need to make those kind of internal decisions. And then, how that manifested moving around the industry was, instead of just being, like here, instead of just being This Week in Photo presents Frederick Van Johnson, it's Frederick Van Johnson who runs, one of the things that he does is This Week in Photo. That was the
Correct.
shift. Instead of being, even with TWiP, instead of being defined by TWiP, I wanted to be defined as the guy who made TWiP and built it as one of the projects that he's doing, not as this thing defines him completely. And if it goes away or folds, then he evaporates. Like if TWiP goes away or folds, or something happens with Smug Mug or whatever, I'm still alive, I'm still around, and I still have mass in order to kind of keep that forward motion going. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered it, but
No,
that was a really good question, because that was a mindset shift way back in the day of, okay, this cannot happen again. How do we not let this happen again?
And I wanted people to hear that, because it is a struggle. I know some people think about it, and I know a lot of people are worried about it, and there is a certain level of fear to putting yourself all the way out there. But
Yeah.
trust me, I was in the same boat when I left Apple, and everyone always asks, "Why did you leave?" It was nothing bad. Here's what
Yeah.
happened: as we grew as a company, at in the beginning in the Genius Bar, we had carte blanche, right? We actually belonged to Apple Care, not Apple Retail, but we had carte blanche. We could do anything, we could fix anything, whatever. In Hawaii, in my community, I have been known as the Apple go-to guy to get something fixed since '84, right? Well, I got here in '85, so anyway, since the beginning. And it was a known quantity. And when I ended up working at the Apple Store, people was like, finally, you're glad you're here, because we know that you probably know this better than all those guys over there. Because it was just a reputation that I had built for myself, mostly helping out people in the entertainment industry, because I was in the entertainment industry. I was known as the
Yeah.
guy that could do the tech stuff as well. When we started getting bigger, right around iPhone 5, they were like, oh, you can no longer help people recover their QuickBooks files. Why? Because, well, so many people have not been able to get their stuff back, and then they try to sue us. So their scared maneuver, instead of putting in a disclaimer and stuff, we'll attempt it, but we're not responsible. As the company got bigger, as the lawyers got lawyery, and they started saying, well, you can't fix that. You can't help people recover photos from a dead hard drive. I no longer could do data recovery. And I had people looking at me eye to eye that knows exactly I know how to do it. And I had to tell them that, oh, I no longer can do that anymore. And so
Yeah.
all it was for me is that they're overprotecting their bottom line, which is fully smart. It's a business practice, it's brilliant, but it didn't align with my value of service. And my community knows my values because I repeat them all the time. But one of my values is service. And I was not willing to give up my level of being able to help my community over one of the best paychecks in the freaking world. Can I
Yeah.
explain that to
Yeah.
you? One of the
Yeah.
best paychecks in the freaking, well, you work there too.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was just like, it doesn't align. It doesn't align. I can't sit here, and that was a paramedic in me. I can't look at somebody that I can fix and not fix them, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so a lot of
Yeah.
people
It's
don't
going to be
know,
hard.
according to Geneva Convention, if somebody hurt an enemy and I'm a medic and I walk past the enemy, I gotta fix them, even though they're on the opposite side. So that was trained into me a long time ago. It's part of my hypocritical oath, whatever. So I'm like, I'm not gonna do it. That was a joke, people. Some of you guys are like, what? So yeah, I just as much as man, I miss it. Every time I miss it, every time the stock bumps up again, I miss it. When the stock split 7 times, I miss it. I would
Yeah.
probably sitting on a couple $1 million, but my values are a little bit more important to me
Oh,
because I can
easily,
sleep.
easily. Oh, I've had those same internal battles. Like, if I could go back, if I had the Avengers ability to go back in time and change things, would I go back, to that point where I made the decision to leave Apple and go to the startup and do all the things? I don't know. I mean, sure, it's easy to say no, I wouldn't go back right now because, everything's great. But no, I've wrestled with that because Apple's a great company. I still love
Yeah,
Apple, and
still love them to
like
death.
being it's hard to articulate being involved with a company that's doing stuff that you've loved, like the products that you've been using and doing cool stuff with, and now you're actually working at the chocolate factory now. It was amazing from that respect, and getting to meet Steve and sit in meetings, albeit in the back, and sit in those
Yeah.
meetings and see that history go down. It was just, I wouldn't trade that for anything. But
Cutting
at the
through
end
the
of the day,
courtyard on your way to Cafe Max, cutting through the courtyard and kinda wanna look up
yeah,
at the 4th floor to see if he's in the window.
yeah,
I'm like, "Go
yeah.
look, go look."
My office was on the fourth floor.
Oh, God, no. Oh, God, no.
What?
Yo.
Yeah, I had to ride in the elevator with him several times, right? And,
Oh,
and
God,
it was so
no.
funny. Like one of my Steve stories is, how you go in the front doors at One
Yeah,
Infinite
yeah,
Loop,
you get your little
and
badge.
and, you know, yeah, you badge in, go past the desk, and the elevators are to the right, right, and then there's a little coffee shop thing to the left of the elevators over there. I remember I'd be walking in. For some reason, occasionally Steve's schedule and my schedule were the same, so we'd arrive at the same time, and there'd be this. A lot of people's were, and there'd be this crowd of people heading towards the elevators to go up to the fourth floor. Marketing was on one side of the fourth floor, and the executive suites were on the other side of the fourth floor. Right, so you ride the same elevator up together. There'd be this crowd of people that would just slowly disperse, as they saw Steve
Yeah,
heading towards the
that
elevator.
was
Because
that was me.
there's a whole
I
rumor
fired
of, he'll fire you, whatever,
100%,
and I was like,
bro. But
I
is it
was
a rumor,
like,
though? I don't know anybody that got
no,
fired, but I was terrified
right.
of that. I was terrified of the
I
I
didn't have that, man.
sure.
I did not have that. I remember, I think I veered off once or twice. I was like, yeah, because when I was new, I was like, yeah, I don't want to lose my job. Maybe he won't like the shoes I'm wearing and fire me. And I'm like, at one point, I was like, you know what? I'm damn good at my job. Our product is going to be amazing. We're on schedule for Macworld back when we were doing Macworld. It's like, we're on schedule for Macworld. If he's going to fire me, then this is not the company that I want to be working at. If he's going to fire me for
Yeah,
some nonsense. So I get in the elevator. It'd be just, he and I, or maybe one other person. And I remember one time, this is like my golden moment, my cherished memory. This was around the time when he was sick, right? So he had his mock
right.
turtleneck on, and he was very thin, and and I was like, "How are things going, Steve?" He's like, "Yeah, they're going great." And he said to me, "Oh, Frederick, how are things in marketing? You're on iPhoto, right?" I was like, I thought about it, and I was gonna respond with something like, "Very good, sir. It's very, we're right on track, and we're ready for, whatever." But instead, I responded with, "I think you know how I think you know how iPhoto is better than me. Peter just gave you an update the other day, and we're on track." Peter was my boss, Peter Love. And like, we just gave you an update the other day, so how good and I said it obviously respectfully, but I was saying, obviously, that this product that is a flagship of the next Mac world is going very well. And he's like, "Yeah, I do know, and it's very great. Congratulations, looking forward to talking about it." Right. And then the next
Oh,
time
that's
I got in,
cool.
he's like, "Hey, Frederick." He's like, "Hey, Frederick, how's it going?" I was like, this dude, who is one of the most famous people in the world, knows me by my first name. So I was glowing the entire day. Like, he said my first name.
Oh, that's so dope. That is so
Yeah.
dope. It's funny. I wish I could do this for everyone. This has been a dream of mine for a hot minute. I really wish I could do this for everyone. Remember when you first walk in to the theater? Okay, after you badge in, I always stopped at the store because I was always hoping there'd be something dope in there. I would stop in the
Yeah.
store
Smart.
and I
Yeah.
get another jacket. I still got my Gore-Tex, yo. I love that joint. But like
Yep.
after you walk in on the side, you had the little theater. That first day after orientations and doing all of the HR work, whatever, they tell us to just sit outside in the little hallway or right outside where the little grass area is. And then the person from HR comes on and says, "Okay, guys, come on in. We're going to bring you in for this briefing." Okay, so we're figuring we're going to go in and make sure you do not do any sexual harassment. Make sure we're going to get the boring video because we're going to the
Yeah.
theater to watch the video. Yo, family, I wish I could explain this to everyone listening. When you walk into the theater, there's 100 people in there that came from everywhere on campus. They got a little message from the bat phone. We need some people down into the theater. And then people just stop what they're doing. They're building Final Cut, or they're making iPhoto, or they're making, the quick take team, let them out the closet. Anyway, they all go downstairs. They line the walls of the theater. And when you walk in, the natural leader in me, I'm the first person in the door. Like everybody else is in the straight line. I come walking in like sergeant still. And they're just like,
Yeah.
you get a standing ovation on day one from 100,
Yeah.
200 people. And
Yeah.
I swear that moment, fam, I will remember that until like my brain just pops out of my dome. Cause it was crazy. I wish everybody could experience it just once. And they meant it. It wasn't even a thing. They legit meant it, like, welcome to the family. It was
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
It
It's
was an
fantastic.
amazing
Do you remember? Do you remember your safety briefing from your first day of orientation? Maybe first or second
yeah,
day. Yeah, I
yeah.
remember it like it was yesterday, because I remember they were talking about leaks, because they were having a problem with people leaking different things about Apple. So they went through this whole like 30-minute presentation. It was the head of security at Apple was in there, and she was going through this whole spiel about how important it was to not leak information, how you don't throw stuff away in the dumpster, and all the security things. And I remember at the end of it, they were talking about repercussions for leaking. Right? Of course, you're going to be fired if they find out it was you, because there's code names and this, they can track it to you, whatever. But I remember her putting this formula on the screen, and she's like, this is how Apple calculates the value of a product release and the press pop that we get at a product release based on how we were able to keep this secret until launch day. This is the dollar value that we feel that we will have lost had this leak, if this leak had happened, right? And this is the dollar value that you likely will be sued for if you were found to be the one to leak this information. I was like, basically, that's the next 20 generations of Johnsons are going to be paying off his mistake.
Right?
So let's not leak anything.
Yo, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. Man, this has been great. I want to again remind everybody, make sure you find Frederick and just trust that he's just the man. And yeah, nobody really had any crazy questions for us. So we're gonna wrap this. Otherwise, Luis will be editing this sucker until the end of time. You're welcome back at any time if you have anything you want to pop off on Twit. And yeah, I just want to say, you got your flowers because Larry popped in and Larry said you got him into photography. Like I want to make sure you get your Tinkerbell juice when you get it, because those things, people realize those mean a lot to us. You don't realize, you don't think, oh, everybody must tell them that. I take every single one of them and gild them. Like, I don't take them for a grain of salt. I'm pretty sure Frederick doesn't, because he's just like me. So he's just nicer. He's a much nicer version of me. Like me, I say really mean stuff. Frederick will make it nice and
less
he'll
hairy.
focus.
I'm less hairy.
So how can people find you if they don't know where to find you?
Thisweekinphoto.com and on my website, which will be launching shortly at frederickvan.com, obviously. And coming up, so one of the things that I'm working on, that my goals for 23-24 is to lean into public speaking more, and keynote speaking and being on the speaker circuit and doing all sorts of things. So already off to a good start. I will be speaking at Autorama World Photography Day in August. Photoshop World with Scott Kelby in September. Photoclave, at which Scott Kelby's also doing a keynote. That's in October also. And also the Creativity Conference, which is coming up in, that's also in October. October's a big month. So yeah, I'm speaking at a bunch of events and more to come. So please, if come hang out at any one of those events and say hi, because these are, for the most part, except for Photoclave, they're virtual. Photoclave is here in Silicon Valley. So if you're local to Silicon Valley, come hang out in person and shake hands. I would love it.
There you go. See, Paul, now you get a reason to get up and, take your Geritol or whatever and then go visit Frederick. Paul's in Palo Alto. Man, this is so great. Man, this is super dope. Yeah, we definitely got to link up soon. And people, be on the lookout. I've teased Frederick with this idea. We're going to do a little AI get together, because both of us like kind of just crack out on AI. So I'm working on something in the back end. You will hear from us soon. So just pay attention to this space. You know what I'm saying? Actually, now that I think about it, Katie would probably want me to do this as a little like Ecamm / AI con. We should throw it together.
Hey.
All right, cool. Anyway,
why not?
Family, we absolutely love you. Don't forget, make sure that you go to flow.ecamm.com to get this podcast wherever your podcast getting is got. That is how you will get it connected to your favorite podcast getting source. We're everywhere, or you can just go direct, flow.ecamm.com. This and every show is brought to you by TWiP. TWiP is legit the sauce, right? This is basically, when I am done, I am able to hit a button, all the files get uploaded, and then there's a little magician by the name of Paul that will go in and find all the things that I said dumb and fix them and make them nice. And then we're able to just get our editing down. So when it gets to Luis, it is much easier for him, and he can basically edit this show with one hand. So listen, if you're a creator, you need to be checking out TWiP. That is TWiP.com. gmail.com. And other than that, we'll see y'all again next week. This live taping is done every Tuesday at noon, East Coast time, which is like dark 30 to me. And then we end up releasing it as a full episode on any of your podcast getting places right after that. So by all means, if you know somebody that needs to see the show live, they got questions, they're thinking about starting a video podcast or any podcast in general, make sure you bring them over to check out the flow. And we appreciate you guys. Flow Riders, out!